All right, so this is one of the new rack extensions. I'll tell you I'll probably get to it at some point in my demo. So this is one of my favorites, actually. I like this a lot. So the Pulsar is a dual-LFO module. Everyone familiar with what an LFO does? Want a sound? If you're not, I mean, basically you have LFOs or oscillators that are running at a really slow speed, and then you can use them to change things. For example, let's just call up a subtractor and give you an example of what you might do with an LFO. So I got a little subtractor-based sound here, and let's say I wanted to do a traditional thing like let this LFO here change the, I don't know, let's go with the oscillator phase here. Okay, so I'm going to go and just take its CV output and assign it to the oscillator phase, and now all right, so it's pretty straight ahead stuff there, right? And of course, if I change the waveform or the speed, that's going to change what happens. And then we have that lovely little shuffle. All right, so that's the traditional things you might do with an LFO or an LFO unit. But of course, I like to not do what I'm told to do. So we're going to use the Pulsar as a synthesizer, because these LFOs, even though they're sending out information or data, they're actually also sending out audio. And you can play the Pulsar from your keyboard if you just do a few different things in the setup of it. So the first thing we're going to do is turn down the level, because I do not want to destroy this sound system. I do not have enough money in the bank to pay for it. So we'll turn down the level, because as soon as I hook this up to audio, if the level's up, it's just going to start pumping out sound waves. And if that rate is way down, then I'm going to be hitting down around the 30 hertz or so at full on with a square wave, and he's going to fucking hate me back there. So we're not going to do that. We're going to go turn our level down, and I'm going to crank the rate all the way up, and I'm going to connect this audio output to the mix channel. I'm going to do the blend of the two for now. So this is the audio out of both LFO1 and LFO2. They're not on at the moment. I'm not hearing anything. Now, obviously, if I turn this up, but I'm not going to do that. So that would be what's coming out of LFO1. Now, this envelope section here in the Pulsar can be triggered if you push this button, or it can be triggered from a MIDI keyboard. All you have to do is actually create a MIDI track for the Pulsar. So we're going to right-click on it and go to Create Track. And now when I play the keyboards here, you're going to see that envelope is getting triggered, see? So that's getting triggered. And what we're going to do is have that envelope affect the level. So we're going to turn that up just a touch. So now we've got that level being affected by envelope. And we'll do that for both, but right now this one's not on. That's all fine and good, but no matter what key I play, same pitch. That's because we need to turn on this keyboard follow and turn keyboard tracking all the way up to 100%. And now, so we've got a playable sound. It's a bit high in pitch, so what I'm going to want to do is take the rate and turn it down. If I start dividing the pitch or the number in half, I start going octaves below. So 1.05 is pure straight octave here. So if I go down about half of that, so what about 509-ish or so? And then we're going to take that down another about 260 something or other. Right there. All right, so we've got our waveform, and it's playable. And we can do some things to create sound, which is one thing is change the shuffle parameter. And since shuffle is actually changing the waveform shape, when you're using it as an LFO to affect something, it gives a shuffled sort of feel. But since we're listening as audio, it is changing the shape of the waveform, so you're going to get something like this, which is really giving you a whole different sort of wavetable. So we're going to go from that to, let's say, a square wave, and watch our levels. Now that's fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have that shuffle parameter get modulated by this LFO. So I'm going to turn that on, and I'm actually going to set it to tempo sync. And we'll start at, I don't know, we'll start at 2/4 to start with. Actually, a little bit faster, maybe 3/16. And I'm going to give it a ramp waveform. And so I'm going to take the CV out of this and run it into the shuffle input. That's fun. All right, so let's do this here. That's just one oscillator actually being played back. Pretty angry little synth sound we've created there, right? So what I want to do is, okay, I want to make a Reese bass, right? That's a pretty standard sort of Reese bass type sound, right? Now what I'm going to do is, instead of trying to have this playable all the way across the keyboard, well, hell, I'm just going to sample it. Because the sound of a Reese bass is actually a sample that's been looped, and as you start playing it in lower octaves, the loop points change, so it starts playing slower. That's the sound. Everyone was always trying to achieve that Reese bass. It was done, the way it was created was taking a sample of a pulse width modulated sound and looping it so that it loops properly, but then as you start playing it, it plays slower and plays faster at higher speeds. So we're going to do that. So let's just create an NXT. There we are. And no, I don't want a grand piano. And I'm going to take this, and we're going to select our sample source for this is going to be the pulsar. So I'm going to take its output, and instead of going here to the out, I'm going to have it go into my sampling input. All right. And you know what? Just to be on the safe side, I want to make sure I'm coming out in stereo, so I'm going to get a Spider audio merger splitter, and I'm going to take this out and give it there, and just get this. So when I play on this guy, I can see that I'm getting level up there in my sampler, right? So that's where my sample is going to come from at this point. So when I go into the NXT, I'm just going to hit sample, play a note, let it repeat just a couple of times, and edit it. So there's our sample, all right? And if I play it, I want to have this do a start right there. So we're going to change our start points. Let's normalize it. And we'll go zoom in pretty tight here. Oh, that's nice. So I want that, and then I'm going to loop it. So we're going to loop it right about, oh, I don't know. That seems about right there. So we'll take that and set the loop. And that might be a little bit off, so maybe right about here. Set loop, no. And maybe right back. Now, if I wanted to be real particular, I might actually just go like this and start it right at the 1. I mean, this is all sort of just doing it blindly. I'm not really going to go be too particular. All right, so I've got my set point there. I'm going to crop it. Oops, didn't want to crop that. So I want to crop in between these two guys. We'll zoom in real tight to make sure that we're cropped at the right place. So right about there. And yeah, I'm not at 0 crossing, but you know, it's rock and roll, who cares? Okay, set their start points, loop points, everything right at the beginning, and now we've got that. All right, so good, done, save. Ready to go. So now it's on the NXT, and I'm just going to stretch it out to be all the way at the top and all the way at the bottom, and it's already looped. So if I select that track and play it, and I've got it way down on the octave. So there's our little sound. So all I did was create the source in Pulsar, and now it's a playable patch all across the keyboard. Plus, it's also polyphonic now, which it wasn't in Pulsar. So I couldn't do that in Pulsar. Again, so that's just sort of an extra thing. It becomes just a sound source. I put it into NNXT, and now I've got this thing that I'm going to save and call it my Reese bass #1.